you can be significant, which I know you already are, right? I want you to think about that as your success. If you don't worry about where you're going to sleep, what you're going to eat, you're already in success. You're already wealthy. You're not in the place you want to be, because you can give back to your children and breed the next generation of great young women and young men, then you are successful, right? So when I look at this picture, I thought about Latanja, one, because of that sexy picture you got on your website. But oftentimes I felt like this is just a plethora of black women looking all kinds of ways beautiful, right? That's what we want. We see women like this and we say, yeah, she got it going on. We make some assumptions and conclusions about her, but we may not know her full story, but we know she's successful and we know we're chasing after it. So that's what I think about. We can go to the next slide. My brother-in-law spoke a message. It was really kind of impactful. When we talk about Jeremiah 29, go ahead and do all three of those. Jeremiah 29 and 11, it talks about, I know the plans I have for you, plans for success, to prosper you, give you hope, a future, and an expected end. There are three parts of us. We talked about the rule of three, right? Three parts of us. That three bold moves, that's one of our threes. Three parts, our past, our present, and our future. Your past, your present, and your future are always having a conversation. Your past is saying, I know her best. Right? I know her best. I've been with her longer. I know her pain. I know why she do what she do. I know how she got here. I'm the most significant part of her story. Wow. Your present may say, no, I'm the most significant part. I know we just met, but I'm with you now. Right? And then your future is saying, no, I haven't met you yet, but I'm anticipating your arrival. And I believe that all three of those parts of you are working together. When Latanya said, working together for the good of those who love God, right? All these things, your past, your present, your future is working together so you can be all that God has called you to be in this moment, in this hour, okay? So God has something predestined and designed for you to be successful, and using all of those three parts. But really, your future is the most important, because that's your place of destiny. Where you are now is good, but it only gets better from here. So these are some books I want you to consider. If you can get The Richest Man in Babylon. Richest Man in Babylon, it will give you principles that you can apply to your life in your financial space, where you can find much success, so that you can, if you're not where you want to be, or you want to move to that place of significance where you're able to give back to somebody else. Because when Sister Latanya talked about giving and doing things to help propel the mission, or when homelessness is on the rise, how can we help? If you ain't got no money, you can't help. Not to say volunteerism is not the most important part, because we need hands and feet on the ground. But if you got some money in your pocket, then you can solve a lot of problems, because the Bible says money solves a multitude of problems. So The Richest Man in Babylon, 3 John and 2, beloved, I wish above all things you may prosper and be in health, even as your soul prosper. So prosperity to me is not just money, but it's your whole life, your wealth, your health, all of those things, your mental state, right? We know all of those things are important. In Psalms 35, it says, let them shout with joy and be glad, who favor my righteous cause, and let them continue. Let the Lord be magnified, who takes pleasure in the prosperity of his people. The point is, he takes pleasure in the prosperity of his people. He wants you to have some money in your pocket, right? Because you are his hands and his feet. If you have a heart for girls who have been pregnant, or people who have mental health issues, or people, homeless, whatever that is, if you're prospering, you can help them prosper. If you're not worried about your own issues, you have resources, you have time in order to give. We can go to the next slide. So those are just some books that you can use to kind of help you get to the place you want to be. You can move those things. Hopefully you can. So where are you now? So how are you going to get your budget and your money in place? Where are you now? Take a real inventory. Where are you now? Don't stop lying to yourself, okay? Lie to somebody else, but don't lie to you, right? And so where are you going? That means if they say I'm only worth 5, how do I get to the 1 million, right? Because that's where I want to be. What comes in and what goes out? You have to give a true account of what goes in and what goes out. When I started to do that, I realized how much money I was wasting. Create a budget. Why is it so important? If you don't know what goes in, you can overspend easily. Sometimes people will say, girl, I make $100,000 a year. Well, what you bring home after taxes? Right. How much is that mortgage? So you need a budget. And a budget doesn't mean that you're restricting yourself, because a lot of people think, if I'm on a budget, I can afford that. No, a budget is simply when you tell your money where it's going. Oftentimes we'll hear your money will walk away from you quietly and not tell you where it went. Right? Because you haven't given it an assignment. If there is no assignment for it, it will go. It's just like if you don't know the value of a thing, you'll let somebody abuse it. Because once you knew your value in all of those situations, you wanted something better. Save now and for later, meaning you need your emergency fund, right? Your $1,000 emergency fund. If you don't have access to that, you're going to start working on that. And what are you going to save for later? That means your retirement, things like that. If you don't have a pension or you need a 401, you need a place where you're putting aside money on a consistent basis. I don't care how much it is. I have a part-time job that matches 5%. So it's like I have no reason not to give. My job doesn't match. I'm in a pension system, so it's a little different. But I have a part-time job that does, so I have to be responsible to let them have that money and match it for me. Debt elimination without the loan. You have to get out of debt. Debt it will eat you up. Come on now, there are some things I won't. And if I got to pay that credit card bill and all those other things, I can't have it. And then creating those multiple streams of income and then wealth creation. We can go to the next thing. So why is this so important? Stewardship is just simply saying utilizing and managing all the resources God provides for the glory of God and to the betterment of his creation. So that means you have a responsibility to handle the things that he's giving you. Why you keep asking for more when you haven't handled adequately the thing that you have now, right? So I want you to give me more. So if you give me a little bit, I work with it. We do the same thing with our kids. If we see they're responsible with whatever we give them, we're willing to give them more. We can go to the next slide. So stewardship, not just financial stewardship, you can roll it, but also your life. And so this is a guide to personal health and wealth. This is kind of how they talked about personal stewardship and just management of your resources. And I guarantee you, all of you have more than enough to meet your needs. And if you don't, if you start doing your budget, you're going to figure that out and what you have to do in order to make some changes. Go to the next one. So when we start talking about it says, without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. You can move to the next. So oftentimes, if you don't have the information you need, seek it out, right? You can't find what you're not looking for. So if you are not sure, what it is that you need, how you need to adjust, start seeking that information out, okay? So where are you now? Where are you going? How many of you have a budget? Next slide. How many of you have a budget that you use? That you use? Okay. So my tax person actually gave me the budget book. So what I did was I used something called Everyday Dollar by Dave Ramsey. And so basically you write out what you bring in and then you allocate what needs to go out. They recommend no more than 30% going towards housing, right? Okay. So I live in Washington, D.C., so sometimes there it may be a little more because housing is expensive. So you may have to make some adjustments, but you make a plan. But then I also have a budget book where I write out what I'm spending my money on. And as I'm spending my money on things, I started to realize how much I was wasting. Where did I waste money? Where do you think I wasted? Out to eat. We will eat up all our money and start tracking it for a whole month. And then I go out with my sister sometime and I'm like, you want to share a meal with me? There's more reasons to share a meal than just, one, you saving calories. Number two, you can split the cost. And really, it's not about the food all the time, right? Because most of the time they're going to give you bread. They're going to give, go ahead. Come on now. I don't know about you, but every time I go out and come back to the house, there's something sitting on the step. What's that? Let me tell you. No, God, this is Amazon. When I started doing my budget, I realized that Amazon get more of my money than any other place. Honey, I got an addiction. I never ordered anything online before the pandemic. Please know, everything I get now come from online. Right. What? You ever been by that store? That one store? I don't know. What it look like? Oh, my goodness. And when you go to Target, do you ever go in there for soap and come out with like 15, 11 things? Yes. Okay. Yeah, all of that, because it's good. Right. And then so these are certain things, right? Your fashion, your food, your little habits, those things are eating up your budget. And so I don't want you to be mistaken. If you don't know where it's going, it will eat it up before you even know. We can go to the next slide, right? So what your income, your paycheck, okay. Your paycheck, your side hustle, your bonus income, your child support, those are the money that's coming in. Account for it all. Your expenses, you got fixed expenses, your mortgage, you got fluctuating expenses, utilities, right? Debit, credit cards, things like that. So those fixed expenses, that's not where you're going to save money unless you're going to downsize and get a cheaper apartment, etc. But your fluctuating expenses is oftentimes the places where you can save money. Anytime you see your budget out of whack, where do I need to get this debt from? Okay, where can I eliminate this debt? And so that's kind of what I had to do in order to get out of debt.
We are currently seeking sponsorship for our Women Empowerment Seminars. Your contribution would help us to host these events all across the U.S. We truly appreciate your support. If you're interested in making a monetary donation, please visit www.fsptsp.org to contact us. Thank you.
Go to the next slide. So how I got into debt. I was married before, and when I was married, my husband, he had access to my money, but I didn't have access to his money. Don't do that. But sometimes he would say, baby, I got $200 out your account, but he really didn't get $200 out my account. He got $500. And so one day I realized that I ain't having so much money as I thought I did, so I had to make some adjustments. And then when we were going through our divorce, one of the things that took place was he had ran up a credit card like $20,000, and I did not know that. What I did not know was that he was making an escape plan, okay? He was going to have me holding the bag. So what ended up happening was when we were married, I was probably making like $38,000 a year. I ended up getting another job because I wanted more money. I got about $50,000. So when we went through our divorce, I ended up buying him out the house. So I had to pay him like $50,000, and then I had to take on the credit card debt, which was like $20-some thousand. And then I had my own debt. It took me more than 2 weeks worth of pay to even pay the mortgage, much less child expenses, utilities, all of that stuff. We went before the judge. I asked for half a daycare. They told me they could not require him to pay that because even though he made well over $100,000 a year, the way we worked in the district was if he owed child support to somebody else, let's say if you were ordered $1,000, if she get $800, you only get the remaining stuff. So I could only get that. So what took place was I did not make enough money to make the ends meet. That's how I got into $58,000. I didn't make enough money. When you don't make enough money, you're going to use your credit card. And so that's what I did. I used my credit card to kind of float things. I had a little part-time job, but I wasn't consistent in it. And so what I had to do was when I realized that the money numbers wasn't working, I had to increase my income. Right? I had to get a part-time job. I still have a part-time job to this day, and I have a business, and I have a full-time. Now, I'm not saying everybody got to hustle and grind in the same way, but you have to determine how are you going to do the things you need to do, because there's always a way. God will use your passion, right, the things you enjoy doing, to bring that extra income. And then the property. One of the things I want to say is I would encourage each of you, if you are not, to become a property owner. When I bought my house, I only paid $120,000 for my house. My house is probably worth about $450,000 now. The advantage was when I did get divorced and I had to pay him the money, I was able to leverage my home to pay him the money and then I had to assume the debt that he had accumulated. So my home was really an asset to me in that respect. Yes, I had to pay much of the debt myself, but I had student loans as well. If my mortgage was more than 2 weeks worth of pay, I still had child care. I had a student loan debt of $600 a month. That was just a financial recipe for disaster, correct? So I had to restructure those things, but because I was a homeowner, I was able to leverage that, right? Because even credit card is 18% sometimes interest. Sometimes you can get a little whatever, right? But at the time, a mortgage was probably 5%. So I was able to leverage that. Do I recommend that for everybody? No. But I believe that as you really seek God about, I want to get out of debt, I want to live free, I want to do what you've called me to do with my resources, He will unlock mysteries, give you strategies. And that was one of the strategies I had. Another strategy that I used was something called the snowball effect. If I paid off a credit card, I would take that money and put that on another credit card. So if you had 5 credit cards, you paid this one off, it was a $25 bill. The next one, you'll double up that payment or add that 25 and keep going until you get to the end, okay? I had to add more income so that I could, because obviously with the way that my finances were going, that wasn't working, right? So I had to get more income. So if you know what's coming in, and know what's going out, you could do that. And so this is just an example of the income, what's coming in, expenses, what's going out. If it's negative, it's in the red, you have to do something different. Go to the next slide. The advantage of me being a property owner, God will give you grace for the things you have to do. Just like you could, do the things we can put ourselves in bad situations or good situations, depending on what it is, in order to get money. He actually allowed me to use my home in order to get ahead. Even during the pandemic, I had a neighbor who lost his house. His house went into foreclosure. He came to live with me. Then I had another little girl that came. Her parents relocated because of the pandemic. Kids were not in school. So, of course, they paid me rent so that she could stay with me because she wanted to stay in the area. She didn't want to go. So for a whole year, I didn't pay a mortgage, right? A whole year of not paying a mortgage puts a whole lot of money in your bank. You know, so sometimes God will give you the grace. If you're a homeowner, she talked about homelessness. How many people are homeless? You know how many people every time I think about needing some money, somebody call me and say, I got somebody that need a place to stay. Now, I've been very fortunate in that I've never had any bad tenants, right? Because I share my space because I don't have a separate apartment unit. But what happens is there's always somebody in need. I like people who need temporary something because temporary, they're going somewhere. They got a plan. Right? I had a young man to come stay with me because he was getting married, and the young lady, let's just say they planned a budget of $10,000. By the time the girl showed up and finished, she had about $35,000 on that wedding budget. He said, well, what I was thinking was I could come live with you, and I could save some money for this wedding, you know, this girl won't. And I said, that sounds like a mighty fine idea to me. How long? And every time she pushed that wedding back, I said, well, glory be to God. He was my favorite tenant of all, okay? I know, but so God will give you grace, right? I've only done it word of mouth, so that's something to do. So if you're thinking about buying a house, please do it. Start saving the money so you can do it. There are all kinds of programs. When I bought my house, I only had to put $100 down, right? I specifically looked for a program in which that would help me, and that was how I was able to get my home. So when you think about creating a budget, making a stewardship, you got your income minus your expenses. If it's positive or negative, please know. If it's positive, keep saving. Eliminate that debt. If it's negative, bring in some more money, adjust your behavior so you can get where you want to go. Go ahead and change that. All right. Go ahead and click it through because I don't want to take too much time. Okay, so I typically do a checking account for my everyday expenses, a checking account for my bills, and then I do a checking account for short and long-term savings, and one for like your emergency fund. Okay, you got to figure out, it wasn't good for me to put all my money together. It just wasn't. Sometimes it's better with my paycheck. If something goes over here, I'm saving it, not even thinking about it, you know? And so, and therefore I don't cross my money, so I've never been a person who couldn't pay my mortgage because I won't touch that check. Right? If it's an account where my mortgage comes, those things that keep my credit going well, the money automatically goes there. It automatically comes out. I've automatized it. Okay? So you'll never be without. Go ahead and go to the next. So by wisdom, a house is built, and understanding is established by the knowledge. The rooms are filled with precious and pleasant riches. So basically, you have to have wisdom, and when you get the wisdom, you have to apply it in order really to get where God wants you to be. Go ahead. Okay. Debt elimination without the loan. At some point, you're going to have to be able to get rid of that debt because that debt will eat away at you. Okay. And you got to do what you got to do to get out of it. One of the things, you go to the next one, one of the things that said that keeps oftentimes black people from home ownership is that student loan debt, right? Sometimes we can't avoid it, but if you can streamline things, pay the minimum on those kinds of things, pay the maximum on things that will get you more freedom, right? If you're going to have a student loan for 22 years, please don't keep putting extra on the student loan. It just is what it is. Just put that money over there. But you don't have to have a car note forever. If you can pay that car note off, right, then you'll have an extra $500 or $700 that you can do some things with. So basically, stop wasting money. Stop spending your money in food and in fashion and in worthless things that don't amount to anything, okay? And so how do you create that? You're going to get a promotion. If you don't have a promotion now, you need some more money. We could talk later, but you need to go ask your boss for some more money. If there's ability for them to give you more money, go ask for it, okay? Get yourself a part-time job or a side hustle. It is imperative. When I started my business at the height of it, I was bringing in maybe an extra $3,000 a month. And so that really goes a long way, right? And that ebbs and flows in business. Create yourself a business. Do some T-shirts, do some cupcakes, whatever it is. Get some money in there. I personally like tax-free money, but that's another story. And I would, please consult your tax accountant. You can go to the next. And I said residential income. So what's your ideal salary? How will you get there? That may be your 3 bold moves. What am I going to do differently in order to get where I want to be? Go to the next one. All of those things, make sure you're putting aside some things. Real estate appreciates about 5% a year, and that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, really. Right? Don't buy a condo. The fees are too high. A townhouse or a single-family home is your best bet. Okay? Insurance, like Carmen said, insurance is the only way to pass down wealth where there is no tax You don't have to pay anything on it. So that's how really the rich keep getting richer. They keep having an insurance policy on somebody, so there's always money coming in. Somebody died, we getting paid, okay? Don't feel no kind of way about it. I will let all of y'all take a policy out on me. If I go up out of here, somebody better get paid, okay? And then you want to make sure you're always increasing your net worth. Your net worth is simply what I owe and, and what I'm worth. And most of the time, the reason why we're not worth much is because we don't have that, something that's always accumulating or increasing. We have a lot of cars, we have a lot of shoes, things that don't have no value. Right. Keep going. So my book is called Help Wanted Mountain Movers. It just gives you some strategies to help you overcome life's challenges and experience something great. And in it, you'll get some additional strategies for how to do some of the things I talked about. And then, of course, next slide, I want to thank, what's next for you? Make a decision. Make extra money, save some money, eliminate some debt, create some wealth. What's next for you? Go ahead and please start doing that. And then get yourself a system. Save yourself some stress, time, energy, and money. That automated thing I had, that saves myself stress and time. I don't have to keep paying that bill. It just keeps coming out. I'll never be late. If it's your business, if it's your health, whatever it is, get a system in place and be consistent with it. If you don't like it, change it, okay?